When a woman is scared to express her feelings, her silence doesn't always mean absence of emotion. In fact, it often means the opposite. She feels deeply, but doesn't trust herself or the situation enough to make those emotions visible. And one of the most honest windows into this emotional tension is her eyes. The eyes are unique in that they bypass the layers of social conditioning. They betray truths even when words are wrapped in pretense. You might notice her holding your gaze a fraction longer than normal, not enough to feel obvious, but long enough to create tension. Or she might glance at you when she thinks you're not looking, only to turn away the moment you catch her. That microsecond of vulnerability, that's not random, that's her affection leaking through her defenses. Psychologically, eye contact activates the same emotional centers of the brain that are triggered by touch and intimacy. It's nonverbal closeness, so when a woman struggles to vocalize her feelings, her gaze becomes a powerful substitute. But this is also where fear shows up. If she's been hurt before, lied to, betrayed, or made to feel foolish for opening up, then the eyes will be the battleground between what she feels and what she's terrified to reveal. What's even more interesting is how this silent communication becomes a ritual. You'll start to notice a pattern: how she watches you when you're speaking passionately, how her expression softens when you're unaware, how her eyes search your face for clues about how you feel. This is her heart trying to speak, but only in moments where she feels safe enough to let it slip. Too often, men overlook these subtle cues because they expect love to be loud. But love is not always theatrical. Sometimes it's hiding in a quiet glance across the room, and those glances can say what lips are too scared to admit. So, the next time you sense something in her eyes that doesn't match the words coming from her mouth, pause. Don't dismiss it. Look back gently and see what her silence is really saying, because love, when it's afraid, still looks for ways to be seen. The truth is, a woman's eyes often whisper the words her heart isn't ready to say, so learn to listen with more than just your ears. ChatGPT said, when a woman loves you but is too afraid to admit it. She often shows it in her availability, specifically how she prioritizes your presence even when it disrupts her routine. But it's not always in grand gestures or bold declarations. More often, it's in the small, quiet ways she makes space for you in her life. You might notice her subtly rearranging her schedule to see you, being there when you least expect but most need it, or offering help without you having to ask. These aren't random acts of kindness, they're calculated risks. She's giving you more than time. She's giving you access to her energy, her presence, her peace. And for a woman who's afraid to be vulnerable, that kind of availability is no small offering. Psychologically, when someone fears rejection or emotional exposure, they won't always communicate directly. Instead, they communicate through behavior. Her willingness to be there is her trying to say, "I care about you," without the fear of those words being misunderstood, rejected, or unreciprocated. In her mind, it's safer to serve than to speak, safer to show up than to open up. But here's the nuance. This kind of emotional availability often walks hand in hand with hesitation. She might cancel plans with others just to have a few unspoken moments with you, but she won't admit that you were the reason. She'll listen to your rants, offer thoughtful advice, support your goals, but if you call her just a friend, she won't correct you. Because speaking her truth feels like standing on a cliff, not knowing if there's solid ground beneath her feet. And that's why her availability becomes the love letter she's too afraid to write. It's her way of saying, "I'm here, even if I can't yet tell you why." So pay attention not just to what she says, but to how consistently she shows up for you. When a woman repeatedly makes room for you in her already full world, despite her silence, despite her fear, that's not convenience. That's courage. Sometimes love isn't confessed out loud, it's proven through presence. And the ones who stay silently are often the ones who feel the most. Another powerful indicator that a woman loves you but is too scared to show it is how emotionally reactive she becomes to little things you do. Now, I don't mean overreactions in the stereotypical sense. I'm talking about moments when something small you say or do evokes a response that seems disproportionately intense. Maybe she suddenly becomes distant after an offhand comment, or unusually quiet. When you mention another woman, that emotional shift, it's a sign of something deeper than what's being spoken. You see, when a woman doesn't care, your words don't carry weight, your actions don't ripple through her emotions. But when she's emotionally invested, even the tiniest gesture can hit like a wave. Her silence isn't always indifference. Sometimes it's fear mixed with vulnerability, an internal conflict between the love she feels and the armor she wears to protect herself from being hurt. From a psychological standpoint, this is a classic example of emotional displacement. Rather than expressing the root emotion like affection or jealousy, she channels it into something safer, like sarcasm, withdrawal, or passive resistance. She might act like what you said didn't matter, but inside, she's replaying it over and over again, questioning its meaning. Why? Because it matters to her. You matter to her. Now, here's where the misunderstanding often occurs. Men tend to interpret this emotional volatility as confusion or moodiness, when in reality, it's a sign of suppressed affection. She wants to connect, but she's torn between the risk of rejection and the desire to be seen. So instead of confessing her feelings outright, her emotions leak out in subtle, sometimes unpredictable ways. And if you're paying attention, these moments are not just random. They are the emotional breadcrumbs leading you to her heart. So the next time you notice her mood shift, when you pull away or joke about something personal, don't just brush it off. Ask yourself, why is this hitting her so deeply? It might not be what you said. It might be what she's afraid to say. Because when love is hidden behind fear, it speaks through emotion. And the ones who feel the most often say the least, but they'll always show it if you're truly watching. ChatGPT said, another revealing sign that she loves you but is scared to show it is her tendency to pull away just when things start getting emotionally intimate. At first glance, this can feel confusing, even hurtful. One moment she's laughing at your jokes, enjoying your company, responding warmly to your attention, and the next, she's suddenly unavailable, distant, or too busy. But what's really happening beneath that retreat is emotional self-protection, not disinterest. When a woman feels something real, something deep, it triggers her defense mechanisms if she's been hurt in the past. Love to someone who's been disappointed before doesn't always feel safe, so the moment she starts to sense that her heart is on the line, her instinct becomes to guard it. Pulling back is her subconscious way of saying, I'm feeling something here, and that scares me. What complicates this even further is that this withdrawal often comes right after a moment of closeness. Maybe you shared a vulnerable conversation. Maybe you complimented her in a way that touched her, or maybe you simply made her feel seen. And then, boom, radio silence. This isn't about playing games. It's a silent panic, a push-pull dynamic between wanting connection and fearing pain. Philosophically, it speaks to something universal. The closer we get to the things we desire most, the more terrified we become of losing them. And that fear can create distance where intimacy was just beginning to take root. It's ironic, isn't it? That love, the very thing meant to connect us, can also make us retreat when we're too afraid to lose it. As a man, your task isn't to chase or pressure, but to notice and understand. Her pulling away isn't the end of the story. It's a chapter that reveals more than it hides. It's an invitation to observe with empathy, not react with ego. The truth is, emotional withdrawal in these moments often signals depth, not disinterest. Because sometimes the one who steps back isn't running away from you. They're running from the vulnerability you unknowingly unlocked. And if you're wise enough to stay still, stay present, and stay kind, you might just be the safe space she never knew she needed. Another subtle yet telling sign that she loves you but is scared to show it lies in the way she overthinks everything you say and do. And I don't mean in the sense of casual curiosity. I'm talking about a mental loop she gets caught in, where your words, your silences, even your emojis are being analyzed, replayed, and decoded like a complex emotional puzzle. Why does this happen? Because when a woman truly cares, her emotional investment makes her hyper, aware of anything that could signal rejection or misalignment. She's trying to protect herself, so she becomes mentally vigilant, sometimes excessively so. A short reply might not just be a short reply. To her, it might mean you're losing interest. A delay in response might not just be a busy schedule. It might trigger fear that she's being too available, too vulnerable, or too much. This kind of overthinking isn't rooted in insecurity alone, it's rooted in depth. It often happens when a woman feels emotionally exposed, but hasn't yet received confirmation that her feelings are reciprocated or safe. So instead of expressing her love directly, she internalizes it, turns it inward, and starts managing it by mentally over-preparing for worst-case outcomes. It's almost paradoxical. The more she thinks about you, the less she says. The more she feels, the more careful she becomes. Her silence isn't empty, it's full. Full of hesitation, full of hidden affection, full of imagined conversations that never reach you. And the longer this continues, the more emotionally exhausted she becomes, not because she doesn't want to love, but because she doesn't know how to safely show it. And here's where emotional intelligence becomes essential. If you're patient enough, perceptive enough, you'll start to see the signs for what they are: not confusion, but caution. Not avoidance, but unspoken desire. She's trying to read your signals because she's terrified of misreading hers. The key here isn't to demand clarity, but to create an atmosphere where she no longer feels she needs to overthink. You do this by being consistent, emotionally open, and most importantly, genuine. Because when a woman feels she no longer has to analyze your presence, she'll finally feel safe enough to express hers. And that's when real connection begins. Another clear yet often overlooked sign that she loves you, but is scared to show it, is her tendency to pull away right when things start getting emotionally intense. This isn't rejection, it's resistance, and that distinction is critical to understand. You see, love, real, deep love, requires vulnerability. It asks a woman to open up, to let her guard down, to allow someone else access to the parts of her that are usually protected. And for many women, especially those who have been hurt before, that level of exposure can feel terrifying. So just when things begin to feel too real, too good, too intimate, she retreats, not because she doesn't feel anything, but because she feels too much. She may cancel plans at the last minute, take longer to reply to your texts, or suddenly shift from being emotionally available to distant and hard to read. It may seem like she's losing interest, but the truth is often the opposite. Her fear of being seen, of being known and then rejected, pushes her into self-preservation mode. This fear isn't always rooted in something you've done. It could come from old wounds, times she opened her heart and it wasn't safe. So even though she feels drawn to you, her survival instinct tells her to step back, to stay in control, to avoid disappointment by pulling away before she gets in too deep. But here's the truth most people miss. That retreat is a cry for safety, not distance. She wants you to prove, gently, consistently, that she can lean in without falling, that being loved won't mean losing herself or getting hurt again. So if you notice a woman who suddenly withdraws just when things are getting beautiful, don't rush to conclusions. Observe, reflect, then respond with steady reassurance, not pressure. Make it clear through your actions that you see her. Not just the version she presents when she's confident and composed, but the hesitant one too, and that you're willing to meet both parts of her with care. Because love that lasts isn't about avoiding fear. It's about creating a space safe enough for someone to face it with you. And when a woman feels that safety, that's when she stops running and starts reaching.